Hello, welcome to a new episode on our podcast. And today, if you want to learn more about the amazing real estate market of Abu Dhabi, yes, this is one of the most interesting real estate markets as of now. I want to present Ellen Kaye. Hey, Ellen, how are you?
Hi, really good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for coming to this episode.
Yeah, no. It's my pleasure. And obviously, there's an awful lot to talk about with Abu Dhabi. It's very much one of the new. It's one of the oldest areas, but it's actually new again in regards to property. I guess now the amount of people investing and the amount of developments and the amount of exciting things that are going on there. There's now a lot of emphasis on Abu Dhabi.
Amazing. So we're going to discuss all of that in our episode. But before we jump into Abu Dhabi's real estate market, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you have quite an interesting story of getting to the UAE, living here, working here. So tell us.
So I've actually lived here just over 13 years. In the UK, I actually had my own businesses, which was primarily in ladies' wear, ladies' clothing and shoes, in retail. And in fact, I reached a point where I sold my business. I actually got divorced and I was kind of at a loose end. And a very good friend of mine who I knew from the clothing business, she was actually here. And she said to me, look, why don't you come? I think you might like it. And I came for a month in August, unbelievably. Decided I liked it and I would mostly come back maybe for 6 months. And 13 years later, getting on for 14 years, obviously I'm still here. It's an amazing place to live. It's a bubble. It's a bubble in the world in all sorts of respects. And, I deem myself, I wish I'd made the decision earlier, but obviously one doesn't go back. But it's a decision which every day I'm delighted when I read the news in the UK, in Europe, in the US, wherever. I just realize just how lucky I am to actually be in UAE and in fact maybe even in Abu Dhabi in particular.
Definitely. So let's talk about that because I host a lot of real estate brokers on the other side of this table where you sit, and we talk about, they're always talking about the Dubai real estate market, and sometimes Ras Al Khaimah, when they're mentioning the casino that's going to open in a few years.
Of course.
But no one speaks about the Abu Dhabi real estate market. Why do you think it's happening, Ellen?
I think for a long time, Dubai has overshadowed Abu Dhabi. Dubai is where all the bling is. Dubai has the tallest, the biggest, the longest, the shortest, whatever.
All the Guinness World Records.
And all the Guinness World Records, absolutely. And this is not really the Abu Dhabi scene. Abu Dhabi is much more grounded. One can argue it's much more serious. It's definitely calmer. Just an example, we don't have traffic jams in Abu Dhabi, not because it lacks traffic, but because it's a properly planned city. It's just a very nice place to live. And I guess up until maybe the last 10 years, Abu Dhabi wasn't expanding in the way that it is now. And a decision obviously was made, particularly now the then Crown Prince is now actually the president. There seemed to have been a huge sea change. And now there's any number of international companies opening in Abu Dhabi in tech. We have the film industry coming to Abu Dhabi, which will be Hollywood and Bollywood. The sound stages are being built at this time as I actually speak. There's any number of new jobs coming. On the finance side, I mean, BlackRock, which is one of the largest funds in the world, has just opened ADGM, which is Abu Dhabi Global Market, which is now also doubled in or trebled in size, in point of fact, partly to obviously accommodate this. And the whole emphasis on Abu Dhabi now, it's very much a get up and go. One of the other things that is really interesting, we have 5 major museums all being built on Saadiyat. The Louvre, I think most people knows, is already open.
I've been there and it's amazing.
It's
the
amazing.
Louvre is beautiful.
It really is. I mean, to be honest with you, the Louvre is amazing as a building. If they didn't even have a painting inside, I think just to look at it, it's a phenomenal building, and just to be inside it. And then we have the Peggy Guggenheim Museum, the Zayed Museum. We have the Abrahamic Family House. which is a mosque, a synagogue, and a church, all basically around the Garden of Eden, which is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the concept is phenomenal. It's an amazing achievement, and it's amazing just to go there and just to walk between the different religions and see that everybody is tolerant and everybody gets on with each other. It's quite incredible. And within this area of the museums, they're building some most phenomenal buildings, absolutely phenomenal buildings, with world-class architects. We have Nobu with Mandarin Oriental. We have a building called The Source, which is extraordinary building, almost phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. And so there's a lot of things happening. I mean, the other thing also happening in Abu Dhabi, which is new, is now all the world-class artists, singers, ballet dancers, which are now coming to Abu Dhabi as opposed to coming to Dubai. Again, this is very much putting Abu Dhabi on the map. So in the last few months, we've had Jennifer Lopez, we've had Coldplay, we have Michael Bublé, we've had wow, I can't think of all.
So many,
so many, I can't even think of them.
When you're thinking of entertainment, you usually come to Abu Dhabi. If it's the Formula One,
correct.
Yeah, and all those things, and you always the shows, the NBA that's coming every year to Abu Dhabi. It's all the entertainment is going to Abu Dhabi. Even me, I'm living here in Dubai for 1 year. I remember myself, driving, I think about 10 times in this year to go to see some interesting entertainment shows in Abu Dhabi. But on that regarding, I know that it's not just a very interesting place to live in. The real estate infrastructure has been going through a lot of change in those years regarding, helping international developers and developers that are working in Dubai today to actually come and build in Abu Dhabi, which they couldn't do it before.
Correct. This is absolutely right. So the main developer in Abu Dhabi is Aldar, who interestingly in the last couple of years have actually expanded into Dubai with Dubai Holdings, but also they've also bought. They're also in the UK. They bought a company in the UK and also in Egypt. But primarily, of course, they are an Abu Dhabi developer. And if you look at the two major islands, or two of the major islands, I should say, which is Yas Island and Saadiyat Island, Aldar are the master developers, and they are bringing in world-class architects, interesting buildings, interesting concepts, not your normal kind of building at all. Buildings which in themselves will have world recognition. So it's a huge change. And the other thing also happening now near the airport, the new Zayed airport, which I think opened 2 years ago. It opened 2 years ago, and it's actually just been voted as the favorite airport in the world.
It's a huge change from the old Zayed airport, which was so change. Old, and now it's so much fun to go inside the Zayed airport. Sometimes I prefer flying to Abu Dhabi instead of Dubai just because of the airport.
Correct. A lot of people prefer it. They find it's calmer. It's much bigger. It was designed obviously for the modern world, and yes, it's very popular. But with around the airport now, they're building whole new cities, with the plan that eventually these I think will become the new cities or the new center, I should say, of Abu Dhabi. So at the moment you have one called El Reef, which is about 8-10 years old, but then you have one called Liman Living, which is a city of 4,000-5,000 apartments and villas, and then you also have Bloom Living, which again is a similar kind of size. So the airport, and then you have Zayed City, where you have a lot of government entities which are actually moving to Zayed City, and they will be expanding that as well. So there's huge changes going on, and they're building whilst on Saadiyat, obviously they are building the highest quality and aiming at very much an international market and a wealthy market. In around Zayed City, they're building very economical, very well priced apartments, villas, townhouses, etc. So they're catering for all ends of the market.
Amazing. And on that, it also attracts a lot of new people in. And on that regard, we've seen the Dubai real estate market. I'm talking about price-wise right now. It's been going through, a lot of boom, a huge boom as we speak right now. Yes. It's been going through a big downfall in 2008. So the market is not very stable. How is the Abu Dhabi market in regards of that?
Okay, so one of the I think the very big differences between Abu Dhabi and Dubai is that the Abu Dhabi market is much more stable. I think partly because the government takes a very strong lead in what is able to be built and the kind of premises, the kind of properties that are there people are able to build, and they kind of try and match the number of properties with the amount of jobs which are being created and the factories that are being created. I mean, obviously, it's an inexact science, but historically, if you look at the various statistics, you see Dubai is much more volatile. The Abu Dhabi market is much more steady and much more solid, much more grounded, which very much typifies Abu Dhabi itself. It is a solid city. It's a grounded city. We don't have. It's not a city of bling. It's a solid. It's a very, very solid city.
It's an old money city.
It's old money. It's real money. Real money. So, I mean, one also has to realize, of course, that the Abu Dhabi is, I think, the second or third wealthiest city in the world. The sovereign wealth fund is the third largest in the world. All the oil in the UAE is basically in Abu Dhabi. There's a little bit of oil in some of the other Emirates, but the bulk of the oil, the bulk of the gas is all in Abu Dhabi. We also have a plane, which I don't think maybe a lot of people know, but there's actually in Al Ain, there are aircraft factories where they're actually assembling parts of airplanes and they announced only, I think, a week or more ago, they're literally doubling the size of the aircraft factories. And also, even more interestingly, I think over half the employees are women, which is very strange, or seems strange maybe in an Arab country. And in an aircraft factory, but again, led very much by the government. You know, the women have a very, very important role to play, and this 50% across the board is something which really they push and they really, really do believe in. And again, I think it changes when you have women involved at that level. It definitely changes the feel and the environment. And obviously, women have a different way of looking at things than guys. And so this is another big plus.
Definitely, I'm seeing. I think the authorities, not only in Abu Dhabi, in all of UAE, really pushing towards, as you said, coexistence between the people, between pushing women forward, giving them the right space, which is amazing things that unfortunately we don't see a lot in the Western world. Behave that way, and here it's such an amazing thing, and it's also it's a really appreciated thing to see. And I want to ask you on that regard. You know, if there is a real estate investor sitting now at his home or is on his car watching us or hearing us, and he's thinking what he should do with his money, where should he buy his next investing apartment? Is it in Abu Dhabi, Ras Al Khaimah, Dubai, or maybe somewhere else in the UAE? What would be the plus sides when it comes to Abu Dhabi, to your regard?
I think the first question, of course, is to ask what actually is, for anybody that wants to invest money, what actually is their intention? Are they going to be a long-term investor? Are they looking actually to buy a ready property or an off-plan property? Again, what is the maximum they can afford? Are they paying with a mortgage? Are they getting cash? Are they bringing the money from overseas, etc., etc.? So one initially needs to ask these very basic questions. I feel very strongly about Abu Dhabi because it's very much an expanding city. I mean, the population is going to double by 2040, and the population will double by 2040 because I know the industries that they're actually bringing in, they're all over the world. They are bringing in companies which will bring in jobs. The government are giving huge incentives. I mean, we have amazing hospitals, but there's more hospitals coming. There's more schools coming, which means obviously more teachers, more nurses, more doctors, etc., and they all need a place to live. So, as regards to buying an investment, it's an extremely good place to buy, but it's also a solid place. It's not an investment that you're unlikely to see a return on. It's an investment that is part of the future growth of Abu Dhabi. And obviously, where exactly? First of all, there's the usual kind of considerations that one makes: the size of apartment, etc., and obviously how much money exactly that you have. So the most prestigious island, as I said, where they're building the universities, the museums, and sorry, there is NYU University also on Saadiyat. I forgot to mention, which in itself is a phenomenal university. Of all the universities in the world, they've had the most Rhodes Scholars in the last 10 years, which is a huge achievement. But sorry, that's a by the by. So yeah, I'd very much encourage people to buy, obviously to buy on Saadiyat, but it's a little bit more expensive. I mean, because we have the beaches, the facilities, and it's more high end. Conversely, Yaz Island, which I think is excellent. It's the entertainment island. So there we have Ferrari World. The Harry Potter is coming. World of Harry Potter. We have Warner Brothers Studios. Yaz Water World, which are just doubling the size of the largest helter skelter in the world, etc. Huge amounts of entertainment. They're creating 17,000 jobs in the next 5 years, basically, on Yaz Island. So again, an amazing investment and an amazing place to invest. And something we haven't mentioned yet is the very new growth of holiday homes. So up until literally 2 years ago, holiday homes were not legal in Abu Dhabi. But the government actually signed an agreement with Airbnb. The tourism authority signed an agreement with Airbnb to monitor it, etc. And this is a huge new growth area. For an investor, as a rule of thumb, you can expect to receive a minimum of 35 to 40% more rent than if you just did a straight one year rental. And I would always recommend actually using a proper company to do it for you. And that's obviously what I've just based those figures on. But again, this will obviously, if you turn an apartment or a villa into a holiday home, then by definition, someone therefore is not going to be living there. So therefore, that is creating even more demand. And I know I have one client in particular, and he's planning to do it in to actually have, I don't know his final figure, but initially it's five holiday homes, and and he started in January this year, and we're already on 3. We'll have the 5 by within a month or so, and then he's going to take it up to maybe 20, 25, maybe even more. And so far, I mean, he's barely seen a blank day. I mean, it's been quite amazing.
Amazing. And it really shows that, of course, that if it's been prohibited for such a long period, so now it's there is big demand for it. But if I ask you, there are many expats that coming to Dubai and want to find place to live, so they're looking for the neighborhoods around, the communities and everything. Yes. Where are the most interesting or the best communities for expats to live in Abu Dhabi? Okay, so the islands traditionally are where expats generally live. So you have Saadiyat Island, you have Reem Island, you have Yaz Island, you have 2 new islands, one called Jebel Island, one called Remhan Island, which are new and currently being developed at the moment. And the publications looks amazing, by the way, for these 2. Yes. Yeah, it looks like a paradise. Yes, absolutely amazing. I mean, lots of emphasis on nature, lots of emphasis on green. In fact, I was with a client just this morning, who's newly arrived in Abu Dhabi, and she was almost shocked by the fact that how green it is. How many flowers there are. She said, I've hardly seen any sand. So people's perception is obviously very different. Just following on what you were saying about places to live. I mean, there's also the Corniche, which again is a very popular, and Raha Beach and Raha Gardens are 2 of the very traditional, more, I say older, but in fact there's been a lot of new development in those areas. So again, very popular with expats. Amazing. And, we also discussed about the concept of freehold property, which also have been changed. Correct. In Abu Dhabi. So tell us a little bit about that. So up until 6-7 years ago, there were very few freehold areas. In fact, but the normal, if you were buying property, you'd be on a 99-year lease. But they now declared
all the major expat areas are now full freehold, and this is freehold as we understand it in the UK, US, or anywhere else in the world. It's absolutely proper freehold. You get a title deed, and all the various documentation, and people can very much rest assured. I mean, one of the things, and it's true, I think of Dubai as well as Abu Dhabi, but the government has really gone out on a limb to ensure everybody of the long-term future. Their money is safe. The infrastructure is amazing. The roads, the lighting, the play areas, the parks. It's all part of what makes living so amazing here. And I say Abu Dhabi in particular, I think, the amount of park areas, it really is incredible. I don't think we have that many parks in the UK that we have actually in Abu Dhabi, which seems to be quite, is quite crazy when you think about it.
Definitely. And, regarding that, I know that you are here for 13 years in Abu Dhabi, which is a really wide perspective.
Yes.
What changes has Abu Dhabi gone through in those 13 years?
I mean, I think the biggest obvious change is literally the amount of physical buildings and the amount of the roads that have been put in, and the amount of infrastructure. And plus, of course, all the social changes which have affected the whole of the UAE. It's the amount of shopping malls. Everything, so it's Abu Dhabi is very planned. If they know how many people are coming, or they estimate, they know how many shopping malls they're going to need. They estimate how many apartments, how many villas, how many towns, etc., how many swimming pools. So the whole thing. So you end up with a very nice way of life, basically, which has kind of been planned to a certain degree. And of course, overriding everything is the safety. And that, of course, is true of the whole UAE. But it's coming from, coming from the UK. I haven't lived there now for 13 years, but I read about it, and the amount of crime is horrendous. And here, as we all know, it's almost non-existent. And it's a very refreshing and a very nice way to live. That one can walk in the street and you don't need to take your watch off. You can be using your phone. You don't have to worry that someone's going to steal your wallet. It's quite incredible.
Definitely. And you also mentioned the road safety in Abu Dhabi. And I remember the only traffic ticket I ever got in my life is on the Corniche for driving 72 instead of 70.
Absolutely.
It's like maybe one of the reasons that there are not so many traffic jams in Abu Dhabi is the fact that there are lots of cameras, of speeding cameras, and everyone is keeping their speed no matter what. And it's been like super maintained over there. No one messes with the speed limit.
Sure. So one of the differences in Dubai, you're allowed to go 20 miles over whatever is marked on the sign. In Abu Dhabi, whatever is marked on the sign is the speed that you have to do, and that is it. And they literally are set, I think, for 2 kilometers, 1 or 2 kilometers over, and yes, you will get a ticket. And there are cameras absolutely everywhere, which means the standard of driving and the level of driving is a lot different. There is a very marked difference. For me, coming to Dubai, I sense it immediately. It's very noticeable, which again makes for a calmer life. It makes for a nicer life. Women, picking up their kids from school and everything, they're relaxed to do this because they know it's safe. Huge emphasis on safety. On safety provisions, etc.
Definitely, and the fact I think that all the the government of the UAE is in Abu Dhabi also makes this place
of
really not only safe but also progressive, thinking forward. You see the infrastructure being built in Abu Dhabi are in a different level than other places in the UAE because the government is there.
Correct.
So it's also a very important thing to mention.
Absolutely. No. Abu Dhabi is the capital city, and it's reflected in some of its buildings. It's reflected in the attitude of the government officials, and I think it permeates right the way through. I think it actually does permeate right the way through. I mean, looking at the UK, you know, there's a marked difference between London and Manchester, shall we say? Yeah, they're both large cities and things, but somehow London is the capital, Manchester is not, and it's the same here. You know, Abu Dhabi is the capital, and it has we said earlier, has the money, it has the sovereign wealth funds, has the investment, has the ability to make investments. The amount of research which is going on here is absolutely phenomenal, and the amount of research that's being funded. You know, I was actually with just in the last couple of days. I've been with a couple of people, and they're researching the future of cities in relation to heat. And this is research all being paid for by the UAE government, and they're doing this research actually in Abu Dhabi, with the idea being that you will be able to walk around a city where basically, even though obviously the sun is shining and it's very hot, but in reality you will still feel comfortable. So a city where you can walk around, even though it's you know, it's
blazing hot outside,
blazing hot.
Yeah.
And of course, they're using AI, they're using the latest research, all funded by the government. And, you know, I was talking to someone yesterday, actually, he's actually from the US, but he's in various countries, and he's ended up here. And he said, you know, one of the reasons he's here is because how easy it is to do the research, to get the backing, to get the whatever he needs, basically, because they really want to be at the forefront of what is happening.
Amazing. And regarding of that, you know, talking about your big experience, your wide experience, tell us a little bit about maybe a certain case study or a deal you remember vividly and has like a place in your head.
Yes, I do. I mean, this was let me just think. Let me just think.
All right, I'll write it down. But we talked about it too, I think, on our conversation.
To be honest, the biggest deal I've done is for a Jewish school, but that's why I don't want to mention that one.
No, first of all, it's completely fine, I think. But we talked about two deals, I think, in our conversation on our Zoom call.
Yeah, one is I've got a guy that's also Israeli. He's bought now 3 apartments.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll just ask you again.
Yeah.
Amazing, Ellen. You know, speaking about your 13 years of experience, you've done some amazing deals here. Do you have any specific deal in mind you would like to share with us?
Yeah, for sure. So something that is quite noticeable is when people initially come, obviously they're in for the first month or so, they're in a hotel. Then they rent their first apartment. And then I've noticed that maybe after a year or so, people then start thinking about buying. And one client in particular, I mean, he initially bought with a great trepidation. He bought 1 apartment, which he immediately rented at a very good rental with a very good return. I think the gross return is around 9-10%, which is obviously extremely good. And now, in fact, 2 years, 18 months, 2 years down the line, he's now on to apartment 3. And this is interesting because obviously, and along the way, he's also recommended me, and he's also recommended to his friends. So people are really now looking to invest into the future. And one of the things the government has done is introduce new visas. So for him in particular now, I mean, his property values are well above 2 million dirhams, which is the kick-in point to get a golden visa. So he will now have a golden visa, which means he only needs to apply every 10 years. Plus there's other various advantages. So what the government kind of planned, which here's somebody that came to a new country, to a new job, etc., is now going to turn out to be a long-term citizen. And he will carry on buying. He said to me, every 6-9 months, hopefully I will just carry on buying another apartment. And this is just one person that particularly, jumps to mind. And he's not the only one. I mean, I have a number of clients who are in various stages of saying, this is actually the place where I've decided I want to live and spend the rest of my life, realistically. And it's because living in Abu Dhabi is just such a pleasant experience, and
Definitely, even visiting Abu Dhabi is a pleasant experience, and
Yeah.
everyone who's been there know that. And regarding that, we're speaking a lot, about your place as a broker, as a realtor in this market. How do you feel that your advantage as someone who knows the market, as someone who's been there and knows the pricing and knows the market and knows the people and knows all the procedures involving, how much it helps your clients, getting the better deals, getting the better.
It
for
helps
themselves.
enormously. It helps enormously. So I have obviously respect from all the main developers. I know all the key people. We work, obviously we work together. I'm in a position where I can really advise people, and I do advise people. And sometimes I even advise people don't buy this because even though they think yes, it's great. Buying property, I think. Maybe particularly in Dubai, but everywhere, the way it's presented here, it's a bit like walking into a candy store. And it's only an experienced realtor, real estate agent that can really advise people. I can advise people on the developer, their experience, how they actually look after the properties afterwards, which is equally important because you can have an amazing building, but if the maintenance is not kept up properly, and it needs to be permanent property maintenance. In other words, a constant program, then buildings very quickly disintegrate. And I can advise, obviously, people on this kind of thing. Procedure-wise, it's basically very straight. It's pretty straightforward. The only big difference between UK, US, and here is that lawyers are not generally involved. It's very unusual for a lawyer to be involved. All the work, the so-called legal work, is actually done by the realtor. And again, obviously, we place the concerns of the client first. This is the thing, because every client I meet, whether they're looking to buy or rent a studio, or whether they're buying or renting a 10-bedroom villa, whatever, I look at it exactly the same. Yeah. Because potentially these are all future customers. They're all customers and people that hopefully they will come back. We will get referrals. There will be repeat business. And this is really what I'm aiming for. Yeah, I want people to come back. I just rented an apartment to a client of mine that's been a client now for 8 years. And she just sent me... They're moving from a large 4-bedroom villa on Saadiyat. Their life has changed, and they're not living in this country as much as they were. So they were looking basically to kind of downsize. And she just sent me I just got a WhatsApp message from her 4 weeks ago. Can you use your magic to find me an amazing apartment? Literally just 2 lines. We went out for, I know them as I know the couple. We went out for one morning. I had 4 options, and the second option was a dream apartment. Literally. And of course, that's because I know the client. That's because I've spent time with her. I know the buildings. I know the kind of facilities. I know the kind of things they want. So the whole process actually was a very simple process. Really, because I have all that information, I have experience. So whenever I actually meet new clients, I always spend a little bit of time actually finding out about them. Where do they live in their home country? Do they live in the city? Do they live out in the country? So clearly, if they live out in the country, they're not going to want to live in the middle of the Corniche, for instance, right? And have traffic all the time, or converse. What kind of, are they very much into sport? Are they very much, what do they like to do? What are their hobbies? Etc. So I build up a picture, and from building up that picture, I can then use my experience to show what I believe will be suitable properties for them, along with obviously the budget, etc.
And maybe from your own experience in the market, there are also some exclusive, properties that no one knows and that doesn't go on listings, and you know them.
Absolutely. So it's a very strange situation in Abu Dhabi, and as such, I always say, look, nothing is exclusive, because one of the things, again, a lot of people do, they when they first come, or even before they come, they go onto the property portals and they see 6 different properties they like, and they contact 6 different agents. In reality, they can contact one agent, because we can do all the properties and we can show everything for everywhere. But having said what you just said, yes, of course, I still have certain properties which we have exclusively, which we are dealing specifically with the owner or the landlord or the developer that really no one else has. And of course, then we what I always try to do is to fit the right property with the right person. And yeah, I am driven to a degree by money, but the most important thing is to have a very satisfied customer. That is the my key thing. And as I say, going back even my life in the UK was retail. Retail is totally customer centric. The customer comes first, the client comes first, and that's exactly how I apply to real estate here in Abu Dhabi.
I believe that these come together, customer satisfaction and money. I believe
correct.
that if you do that, then it's definitely going that way.
Yes.
So investing in both of them and making sure that both of them are good is always an important.
Of course.
I want to ask you if we have someone in our audience that already invested in Dubai or Ras Al Khaimah and know the market over there, what he should know before he thinks about Abu Dhabi. Is there any differences between those markets that we should know about?
Okay, so the actual rules, laws, whatever, are different in Abu Dhabi. I mean, and Dubai. In Dubai, you have RERA, who monitor everything. In Abu Dhabi, you have ADRED. There are differences. They're not major differences, but nevertheless there are differences. And for instance, one of the most important things to find to make sure that whichever realtor that you actually do appoint is to make sure he has a broker license, which is new. With that again, is comparatively new in Abu Dhabi. In Dubai, RERA's licenses I think have been for really 6 or 7, maybe more years, 8 years. In Abu Dhabi, it's only in the last couple of years. But it's very important to make sure that whoever you're dealing with, both the company and the realtor ideally has a proper broker license, which means we've done exams, which means we've been approved, which means we work in a certain way. That means that we're not going to scam you. We're not going to do anything which is illegal. We will hopefully give you the correct advice for you, etc., etc., etc. So I think in Abu Dhabi, since it's newer, there are, in truth, yes, there are a lot of agents who are operating without licenses. Their companies don't have licenses. They don't have the proper regulation. It's up to people to ask the questions. It's as simple as that. Ask the questions. So if you see a property that you think you like, I mean, ask questions about the company they work for. Ask to see their trade license. Ask to see their broker license. Make sure the person you're dealing with actually does know what he or she is talking about. As a customer, you're fully entitled to know, and clearly, I'm delighted when people ask me. I'm proud to have a broker license. I'm proud that my company has all the correct licenses that it should have to operate in the market. And I'm sure this is true, obviously, of my competitors who are equally in the same league. We're delighted if people start asking us questions, because unfortunately there are still an awful lot of sharks around, and this is why one hears the horror stories and the scams and so on and so forth.
Definitely, you must check before you do anything, any transaction.
Yes.
Especially in all over the world. UAE is no different than that. I wanted to ask you, about regulations, because you mentioned RERA, you mentioned that, we know RERA in Dubai regulates everything, regulates the monitoring the rent, monitoring the management fees, monitoring almost everything.
Yes.
Is it like that in Abu Dhabi too?
Yes, but it's a lot newer. So the law actually came in 2015-16, but it's been a little bit slow to actually be applied, but it now is beginning to be properly applied. We have something called ADRED, which is part of ADM, and then ADGM also has its own regulatory authority. But yes, it is all properly regulated. There are some major differences when it comes to actually evicting tenants or asking people to leave. In Dubai, there are basically only four reasons you can actually ask somebody to evict to leave a property. And you have to use one of those four reasons, and you also have to use a notary. In Abu Dhabi, literally, one can send an email to a client as long as it has to be 2 months before, or 60 days to be exact, 60 days before the end of their lease. You're just simply not going to renew their lease. which of course, I mean, for an investor is and for a landlord is a positive. For a tenant, it can be a negative. But then I always say to tenants, look, always negotiate, always talk, always negotiate. Don't take an attitude that the owner, the landlord, is my enemy. Make him your friend. Make him your friend so that when situations arise, hopefully you'll have a relationship and you can discuss things. And most people are reasonable. Because the other thing is, whilst I say that in Abu Dhabi, yes, a landlord can get somebody to leave within 60 days. On the other hand, landlords don't want empty premises. It's the last thing anybody wants as an owner. If you're renting, is to have some premises empty. So...
And if you are a good tenant and you pay on time and you keep the property clean and good, why not?
Then fantastic. Yeah. Then fantastic. But that is a major difference between Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Particularly, I say it applies to investors, not if you're an end user, of course. And this is another reason why a lot of people are actually looking to buy, because of the uncertainty of rent. The uncertainty of rents are going up at the moment. I mean, demand is definitely exceeding supply. I think it will be slightly corrected by 2028 because of the amount of properties which are now coming on the market. But even then, I think demand is still going to be very, very high. So a lot of people are saying, look, I'm paying all this rent. I don't like the thought that at the end of a year I might have to leave or not leave, etc., etc. So people are looking to actually buy. And as a kind of rule of thumb, roughly what you're paid out in rent is roughly what you will pay on a mortgage plus your various service charges, etc., etc.
Definitely, sometimes even less. You pay less as a mortgage.
Even less.
Yeah,
sometimes
definitely.
Even less.
And you get to keep the property afterwards, which is
property, yes.
a huge thing.
Yes, and another change, which again applies for the whole UAE, but mortgages now are very, very similar to what you can get in Europe. In other words, you can get fixed term, variable term. You can get payment holidays. You can get all sorts of variations.
Definitely.
So again, we work with a couple of very, very good mortgage brokers that really have all the whole market. It's not just the half a dozen high street banks. It's well over 50 providers, even more. And also, interestingly, even if you are living overseas but you want to actually invest in Abu Dhabi, we can get a mortgage for that as well. We can actually get a mortgage.
Amazing. And it's also very important to mention. And from what I know about these mortgages, they are pretty easy.
Very easy.
Get. Yeah, yep. You're getting not a big amount of documents or bank statements, etc. Yep. And you're getting that. And it's a huge
one of the
incentive.
reasons is because there are no lawyers involved.
Of course.
So lawyers make their money by producing documents.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you haven't got a lawyers involved, you've just got really a realtor who's looking to push the sale along as fast as possible, and you've got just a mortgage broker, no, you don't have dozens of loads of documents. Something very important, though, to remember and to bear in mind, that in any official document, it's always the Arabic that will actually, if there was ever a legal case or you ever had to go to, obviously in Dubai, RERA, in Abu Dhabi, the Rent Disputes Committee, or to ADRET, it's always the Arabic that will take. And this is
they always present an English version in front of the Arabic, but the Arabic is one that it matters and will take.
Yes. So one of the things that I always do, actually, if ever, again, on behalf of the clients, if I get a contract, I actually get it checked, get the Arabic checked, that it matches up with the English. Because, if there's a dispute, it could be one or two words which are just slightly different.
Definitely.
And that can cause a massive
lost
problem.
In translation.
Exactly.
There's been
lost in translation.
Movies on that, for sure.
Yeah. So again, from my experience and knowledge, I cannot ever recall an instant where I can recall instances where the translations have been different. But we've managed to get around it. Generally because in ADM in Abu Dhabi, the people actually who are administering the transfers or whatever, they're flexible and they're knowledgeable and they do understand maybe what was actually being said. But nevertheless, it's important for clients to actually know this.
So Aaron, I want to ask you one more thing about offline properties. I know that many people are looking to buy
Yes.
something off plan. It's cheaper. They have like, payment plans some developers had. What are the most important things that people should know before they buy an off plan?
Right. So the first thing is to do research. So do research, first of all, in the actual company you're buying the property from. Find out what properties they've built, how they keep their properties, obviously the standards to which they build. But I think more important than anything, a lot of people get lured into 5% deposit, maybe even no deposit, 1% down payment, 1% a month, 5% in 6 months, etc., etc. And the key thing to remember is that basically you're going to have to afford this money, and you're going to have to be paying it over maybe 3 years or 4 years. And we don't know necessarily what's going to happen in 3 years' time or 4 years' time, either personally or even on a wider scale. So I hear people, particularly buying maybe a studio or a 1-bedroom, and yes, they can afford the down payment and they can afford maybe the first payment, and they say, yeah, then I'll sell it. Well, you may not sell it. And the problem is that if you can't make the payments, yes, you can really negotiate to a degree. There is a certain level of flexibility, but developers obviously are in business, yes, and the last thing a developer needs is to have properties where they're not getting the payment that they've actually reckoned that they were looking to rely upon. So what I would say to people is be very careful in your commitment, that what you're committing yourself to, you properly can afford to see it through to the very end. And even worse, I mean, you may reach a stage where, okay, you can't afford to pay and you either have to give it back. And remember, the within the contract, and one should read contracts very, very carefully, generally the developer has the right to take back the property and not give you back the money that you've actually already put into it. But conversely, how are you going to feel if that property doubles in value or trebles in value and you had to just give it back? So all I would say is do your research, think it through very, very carefully. Don't just rely on the basis, yes, I'll buy it, and 6 months, 12 months down the line, I will just double in price, I'll sell it, I'll make my fortune. Yes, hopefully that does happen, but be prepared for it not to happen as well. So that's kind of advice I would, and do the research, as I say, particularly on the developer, that they do finish on time, that they finish to a good, reasonable quality, and also how they keep their properties afterwards. This is very important.
Definitely. And
Yes.
we've been speaking about it a lot. Let's say it here, both of us are Jewish.
Yeah.
From Israel, you've been to Israel many times.
Of course.
And I know that you have a lot of Israeli clients. Let's speak about how good the UAE, Abu Dhabi is for Israeli clients.
Okay, so as a Jew, I think this has to be one of the safest places in the world. I mean, it's quite phenomenal. Obviously, I was here when 13 years ago, people kept a very, very low profile, particularly in Abu Dhabi, actually, because most people at that time actually worked for government entities, and they were very nervous about the fact that they were actually Jewish. So it was in Abu Dhabi, in Dubai, sorry, that it first became when we had the first synagogue, when we had the first families meeting. We had something called the Villa, which was the first proper synagogue in the UAE, effectively, which the authorities knew about, and we had meetings with them, and they were always been very, very helpful, very, very supportive, etc. And coming now right up to date, I mean, obviously we know the world news, and it's not the greatest, but I can truthfully say that there's been almost no anti-Semitism at all in the UAE, and the few cases that I do know of, the government has acted immediately. And by acting immediately, it means they've cancelled their visa and they've just deported the people. There's no argument. There's no, I didn't mean this, I didn't realise that. It's just simply out. Finished. Very straightforward. And on a government level, the amount of trade. So Israel was the second country after India where the UAE signs something called a SEPSA agreement, which is a trade agreement, and it's projected, I think, by the end of by 2030, if not before, that there'll be over $10 billion a year of trade between Israel and the UAE, and it's growing all the time. And there, as I say, as a Jew, I've never hidden the fact ever. that I was Jewish. Even when at the very beginning, when I had to write forms, they ask your religion, I always put down that I was Jewish. And there's no issue and absolutely no problem.
Yeah, there's been a lot of debate within Israelis when they go abroad, what country they should say they're from, because they can't say they're from Israel. They say they're from Malta, from Portugal. I've been hearing so many things. And here I'm here for a year. I've been saying I'm from Israel all of the time. I'm always, not only I'm from Israel and I'm smiling, I'm from Israel with a smile.
Yes.
And everyone accepts and everyone are nice, and whoever has a different opinion about it keeps it for himself.
Correct.
Like it should be.
Yeah.
And it's okay. No one should love, and not everybody should love you. It's completely fine. But whoever has a problem with you keeps his mouth shut.
Keep them.
And everything is fine,
Yeah.
Life is going.
Yep, totally. And this comes from the very top.
Yeah.
This really does come from the very top. I remember in particular when I attended a dinner, a very small dinner actually, at the Abrahamic House, and Sheikh Mohammed himself sent an emissary with a letter basically to say that we shouldn't worry, that we all his children, and he would protect us. And this would have been just around this current war, October the 7th, and it's very more than gratifying, and it is a fact. It is a reality. It really is a reality.
Definitely, and I feel that I think that some of us are coming across officials, and every time as being greeted so beautifully, saying us from Israel, and they're really it looks like they're really giving us a special. No one should be special, but they give like a special treatment for Jewish, for Israelis to feel at home, to feel safe. In the way it's definitely showing. Ellen, we're coming unfortunately to the end of this interview. It's been really fascinating. I want to ask you, just before we're finishing, do you have anything else you would like to share with our audience before we finish?
I think just to, I think the main thing is, and I know we've covered it, but so I'm repeating myself, I think it's a great place to live. It's a great place to invest. Your money or whatever you invest is guaranteed by one of the wealthiest governments in the world. You have an amazing leadership that wants to do well by all its people, by everybody. So if you have initiative, if you have drive, if you really want to succeed, this is very much the place to come. And as I say, in my particular field, to buy property, to invest in property, and also things allied to property. So the environment, how we're going to live in the next 50 years, 100 years, how to apply tech, how to apply AI to building, to agriculture, to water, etc., etc. The government would love to hear from everybody, wants to hear from everybody, encourages everybody, and it's a wonderful to be in such a positive environment.
Definitely. I definitely agree. I'm here for a year. As we said, I feel more calmer, more in peace, more in free to do my business, and I think that everyone are the same here on that regard, and feeling really good here, and more people should know about it. And of course, knowing about Abu Dhabi, which is a really interesting market, that I think that everyone should at least consider, if not already buying in a very interesting market. And it was a great pleasure hosting you today, talking about this amazing market. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for listening to us. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
All right, we finished. We had about 50 minutes. We have time for maybe one more question. If you have anything running into your mind, if you want me to ask you and I can pop it in.
What do you think?
I think we've pretty much covered it, but if you have anything like, we
I should have said this, I should have said that. No, I think...
I think we pretty much covered everything. Even from your page, I tried to add some, the more individual questions on why you should get a realtor, what is very... I tried to add these two, and I think we pretty much covered everything.
Sure.
But if you have anything that's running to your mind at this very moment.
Yeah, maybe only about off-plan property.
Okay.
We haven't mentioned off-plan really, have we?
Yeah. No, I mean, we just said it like everyone should do his own choices, whether if it's off-plan or ready property. You said it at the
so
the beginning.
One thing I can actually say is that the people, when they buy off-plan, they need to make sure that, in fact, they can actually financially go.
So let me ask you. Let me ask it to you.
Yeah.
I'll just write it as this extra question. 1 second.